Welcome to a new episode of Books and Beyond from the Winter Park Library, recorded live in the recording studio at the library in beautiful Winter Park, Florida. In Books and Beyond, we have conversations with writers, musicians, artists, presenters, and other contributors. Most of our guests have appeared live at the Winter Park Library or will be presenting soon. We hope you'll subscribe to the Books and Beyond podcast and that you'll stay up to date with library goings-on at winterparklibrary.org/events. That's winterparklibrary.org/events. I'm Michael Werner, and I'll be your host for our interviews. Enjoy the show. Hello out there, library patrons, readers, and smart people everywhere. This is Michael Werner, your host for the Winter Park Library's Books and Beyond podcast, and we have a couple of special guests here today. But before I introduce them, let me talk a little bit about some of the events happening in the library this summer, and particularly this month of May. But things get really active here because the kids are out of school, and that's one of the topics we'll be talking to our guests about. Kids are out of school, lots of activities happening here in the library. So I've got the happenings printout here for May of 2025. Just want to highlight a couple of them. I mean, there are several categories, and for example, in the creative arts section, there's a section for toddler art, finger painting. There's a series of Wake Up with Winter Park Library story times. We've got the Bouncing Babies, Wobbly Walkers, Tales for Twos, and Preschool Express. And then in the health and living category, where there are maybe 20 different sessions, there's a session on aimed at seniors for preventing scams and fraud. There's another one for anybody. It's a lunchtime yoga that happens here in the library community room. And then in the performing arts category, we've got a Winter Park Ukulele Society, which happens, I think, just about every month. You can come and learn how to play ukulele, listen to ukulele bands. That's always a fun one. And then there's several other categories, and one that I like, it's close to my heart here, in the technology section, is you can come here actually to the studio and learn how to use the facility, use the equipment to make your own podcast, to record music, to create an audiobook, anything to do with sound. You can do here in the podcast studio. We've got several authors speaking during the month, so please check out the events calendar at winterparklibrary.org/events. That's winterparklibrary.org/events. Okay, let's talk to our guests who have many things to say about our community, because we have the mayor here, Mayor Shelia DeCiccio, and we have the police chief, Timothy Volkerson, with us. Good morning, Mayor.
Good morning. It is such a pleasure to be here. The library is one of my very favorite places to be.
Glad to have you, and welcome, Chief.
Good morning. Thank you for having me on this morning.
Yeah, you're welcome. We thought we'd talk about some summer topics in particular, but we can talk about, just about anything that's relevant to you and might be relevant to our library listeners. If we could start out, Mayor, maybe you can go first. You're mayor now.
Yes.
How'd you get here? How'd you become mayor, and what's your background?
I have lived in Winter Park for almost 43 years. My children were both born and raised here. I'm an attorney. I was with the Lowndes firm downtown Orlando, and then I joined my husband's firm after becoming the first woman partner there. And I was on a number of boards in the city of Winter Park: Planning and Zoning, Code Enforcement, Economic Development Advisory Board, and then some people approached me and asked me if I would run for commissioner, and I said, yes, I love the city. And I wanted to continue doing as much good as I could for the city. And then 2 years ago, they asked if I would run for mayor, and I said would love to. So I'm very pleased, and I love working with the library and seeing we got the library open on Sundays and just programs within the city. So I love it.
Well, I thank you for the Sunday opening, because that was one of my personally my favorite time to come to the library is on a Sunday, and I was disheartened when it was not open any longer on a Sunday. So I thank you for that.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
How about you, Chief Volkerson? What's your background?
So I was born and raised here in Central Florida. Grew up, went to local schools, went to St. Charles, Bishop Moore. When I graduated college, I attended the police academy at Valencia, and I started my career right after the police academy here in the city of Winter Park. I've been here 24 years, and I've been serving
in the Winter Park Police Department.
In the Winter Park Police Department, and I've been serving as the police chief for the last 3 years. But throughout my career, I've touched just about every division within the police department: community policing, canine investigations. So It was it's been a great career, and it was fun kind of growing up in the police department as an adult and learning all the different roles.
And what was your first job in the police department?
So just like every other police officer, I started in patrol. I did about a year in patrol. I went to our bicycle unit at the time. We got a COPS grant for bicycle police officers, and I served in that role for a couple years, and then I did K-9 after that and was promoted up the chain after that. But throughout my career, I've also served on our SWAT team, and that's probably one of my biggest passions in police work is SWAT.
Interesting. We could have a whole session on that, I'm sure.
Yes, we could.
Yeah. And Mayor, are you still a practicing attorney?
No, I stopped practicing after 45 years last January. So I really am devoting all of my time to being mayor of the city of Winter Park.
Well, I have to say this, and people can't see you, but you look so young. Both of you look so
thank
young.
you.
I can't believe you were for 45 years. And Chief, you look like you're about 18. So.
You're not saying that about me, though.
Well, no, you look a lot younger than your experience implies. So anyway, let's get to some questions here. Summertime coming up. This is really for both of you. What are some of the issues that we're dealing with in Winter Park this summer in particular? Yeah, Mayor?
Well, there's a number of issues. We're always preparing for hurricanes because we're going into hurricane season. So we've got all our department heads, the Emergency Operations Center. Everything is, just gearing up in case we hear of storms, and we're prepared. The other thing is children are off, and so there's a lot of summer camps going on. There's a lot of kids riding around, and right now, I think half the kids in Winter Park or more for Christmas got the e-bikes and scooters.
Oh boy!
And so they're all over on the roads. So we are really, really turning it over. Going to turn it over to Tim to talk about what we can do for safety because children have been hit, and it's because they dart out. And we're really working hard to teach them the rules. And I know we're doing some videos and stuff, but Tim, I'm going to let you go into that in a little bit more
Yeah, and I can
detail.
personally attest to that. I mean, I see kids on my street. They must be going 30 miles an hour on some of these things. They're just zooming down the street on these scooters. I mean, they're 8 years old.
Yes, and we get constant calls, and even really basic things like when you get to a stop sign, what do? You stop, but they don't. They zoom right out. So that's where the police are really coming in the videos. And I'll let you, Tim. I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, Chief.
Yeah, so the e-bikes and e-scooters are extremely popular right now, and I equate it to when I was growing up. Skateboarding was like becoming one of the popular things with the kids, and I think this is just the trend for this generation is the e-bikes and the e-scooters. And under Florida law, the e-bikes and the e-scooters are treated like a bicycle. They have the same rights as a bicycle, but they also have the same responsibilities as a bicycle. So under Florida law, under 16, you're required to wear a helmet. And I know that that's maybe not the most popular thing with kids, but they are required when operating either a bicycle or an electric scooter or an electric bike. And we encourage not only those under 16 to wear them, but everyone who's riding them to wear them. Also with the law, the e-bikes and the e-scooters have certain requirements in order to fit in that category of a bicycle. They have to operate 20 miles an hour or under. There's a lot of manufacturers out there who have e-bikes and e-scooters that go a lot faster than that, and some of them have the ability with the swap of a key to change the speed. So it's really important for parents when they're purchasing these items that they look into the item to make sure that it is going to fit the requirement for them to legally operate as a bicycle. And like the mayor said, one of the biggest issues is for the kids to understand that they have to stop at stop signs. They have to stop before they cross the street. They just don't have free reign to operate wherever they want, whenever they want. And as far as pedestrians on sidewalks go, they're required to alert a pedestrian on a sidewalk before they pass them. And that's a huge requirement that not a lot of people, whether they're operating a regular bicycle or not, understand.
So how do you get the word out about all this? Or what things are you using to do this?
So we've done some education with the kids directly through enforcement. Our traffic officers have gone out, and it's pretty easy to figure out where the kids are operating because they take the e-bikes and the e-scooters to schools in the morning and on the way home in the afternoon. So we go out there and we'll do stops for violations, and we'll educate the kids. You need to have a helmet. You need to make sure you stop before you cross the street, things like that. But no ticket enforcement at this point. It's all been education. In addition to stopping and educating the kids, we've also done videos, and we post them to our Facebook page. We try to send them out through our email group so parents can see what's required. Some of the things I highlighted, but we did it. One of our traffic officers and Commissioner Russell did a video recently on the e-bikes and e-scooters. You can check out our Facebook page. The video's on there.
And that's at the Winter Park Police Department Facebook page?
Winter Park Police Department Facebook page.
Okay. And e-bikes and scooters can use bicycle lanes, I presume.
Yes, absolutely.
So you got conflicts there with walkers and regular bikers as well.
They can operate in the roadway, they can operate in a bike lane, and they can operate on a sidewalk. Yeah. But again, they don't have free reign. They have to follow the rules of the road when they're operating there.
Well, I remember as a kid, I didn't follow the rules of the road. I mean, I just biked everywhere, and back then it was not as big of an issue as it is now because they weren't electric. And the speeds were a lot lower. But I'm guessing probably the enforcement on the roads is probably a good way to you spread. If you stop a kid, he's going to tell all of his friends, right, or her friends that I got stopped today.
Normally they ride in groups when they're on their way to school in the morning, and they've been very receptive. We've seen a lot of changes in behavior for some of those groups and how they're operating, the safety equipment they're wearing, and really we encourage the parents. Invest the time to research the equipment you're buying them. Make sure, as far as the e-bike or the e-scooter, make sure you have the safety equipment that's required, and really make sure your child understands how to operate that equipment before you turn them loose on the roadway. Mm-hmm. Each bike or scooter operates a little bit differently. Do some practice with them at your house. Make sure they understand fully how to stop. How to stay within the speed limit. All those things are very important for parents to invest the time to make sure their kids can safely operate them before you turn them out and let them ride.
Now, I guess this probably, for both of you, is probably would bring up other problems, but I mean, is licensing a possibility, or is that not something that you could consider?
No, under state law, that there's no licensing requirement. They're truly treated just like a bicycle.
Okay.
And one other thing we're doing, we're working with Orange County Public Schools, because if you're in Winter Park, you've got kids that go to Audubon, you've got kids that go to Glenridge, so they're on the Winter Park streets, and then all of a sudden they're on the Orlando streets. So if this summer we can get some videos that can be shown when school starts as to the safety, that's something that we're also working on and coordinating with the principals of those schools.
Yeah. To
try to get the word out, and with all schools, of course, in Winter Park, but they would be in Orlando, so we would have to coordinate with the public schools. Yeah.
Okay. Are there any other factors, Mayor, that we should talk about as it relates to bicycle safety or other kids' safety things for the summer in particular?
Swimming is always a big issue, and we have all types of swimming programs, and really every child should learn to swim, and it's free. And we offer so many, whether it's at Caddy Way or at the Winter Park Community Center or at the Y. There's so much water in Central Florida, whether it's a lake, a pool, or whatever, and so cannot stress enough. Please teach your kids the basic, just to fall in the pool and know how to float,
and or how to float or get out. Yeah. How do you? How would you find those resources?
You can go on the City of Winter Park's website, and there's a whole section on it, and it lists all of the different pools, times of the courses, just like you were telling us in your Winter Park library information. We have all of that on the website, so any parent or child can go on.
And what is that website?
winterparkgov.com.
winterparkgov.com.
And then when you click that, then it'll give you all the different areas.
Okay. All right, cool. Let's transition here a little bit. Chief, I wanted to ask you a question about a couple things new, I think, to the department. You've got a new community police officer initiative. What's behind that, and what's happening with Winter Park?
So we started a community service officer program about 2 years ago. We started with a single employee, and what it is it's a civilian employee that receives special training, and it was designed to add to our patrolling. They handle basic calls of crimes over with. They can handle minor traffic crashes. They can handle parking complaints. And that's all in a civilian role. And what that does is if they're handling those calls that don't require emergency response, it frees up our police officers to be able to respond to emergency calls for service. And in Winter Park, we have a lot of traffic and we have a lot of crashes. We're always right around 1,500 crashes a year. So
I didn't know that.
It's a
What's that, like 5 a day?
it's a daily occurrence. So if we can have a civilian employee that can work minor crashes, that frees up our traffic units to do speed enforcement, stop sign enforcement, or our patrol officers to respond to emergency calls for service. So it started 2 years ago with a single community service officer. We added a second community service officer last year. One of them works kind of a morning shift. The other one works kind of an evening shift, and it has worked out really, really well. They're a tremendous asset to our police department and our community.
Is that a trend that you're seeing statewide or nationally? Are other communities doing that as well?
So that program has existed in other law enforcement agencies for a long time. We just have not, we've never taken the initiative to try it. So I thought it might be a good idea here, and the mayor was more than gracious to support us in that initiative.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's worked out beautifully. And even you go on Park Avenue, and the shop owners are so happy. Even if they get a ticket, they say, "Thank you, Derek, for enforcing." Derek Chauvin is one of the community service officers. And it's just community relations, too. And I think the program so far has been a huge success.
And do some of the emergency call, the 911 calls, get funneled to these people, to these officers, or how do you assign something to them?
So they don't respond to any emergency call, anything that's in progress.
Okay.
If there's a car burglary in progress or a fight in progress, their role is not to respond to that.
Right.
They don't receive the high liability training to respond to those type of calls. So they're strictly a crime over with call,
Okay.
or minor crash call, where it doesn't require that extra level of response of
Okay.
a regular police officer.
But I'm guessing some of the calls that come into 911 are minor. The person doesn't think they're minor, but they are minor.
Yes, I wouldn't say they're minor, but yes, they don't require that higher level of police response.
Right.
A great example of that is a fraud call. If you're a victim of a fraud, that's in no way minor to you.
Sure, of course.
Someone has swindled you out of money, but it doesn't require a sworn police officer with a gun and a radio and a taser to respond to that, to take that report. And that's kind of the role the community service officer will fill. They respond to those type of calls, and they're able to document in the reports. They receive a lot of the same training as our police officers.
Okay. And do you see that, Mayor, do you see that role being expanded over time, or as that's a budget issue?
Both. Both. But I think we've talked about adding a third officer, a third CSO officer. And they can do things like the crossing guards. It's wonderful. You don't need a police officer in full SWAT gear doing the crossings at the school. And there's just so many different things that they're wonderful at. And as I said, really, community relations, it's great.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, I would think at least another officer, but again, I would discuss that with Chief Volkerson and see what works best for them.
Sure. I mean, because you probably have to pull resources then from, at least funding from regular police work, right? I mean, to fund that position.
Correct.
Yeah. Another question that's not directly related to that I wanted to ask you both about is the homeless advocacy response program that's around now. Mayor, you want to talk about that?
I think I'm going to let the chief because he's really involved with it.
Okay.
This we call this our HEART unit, Homeless Advocacy Response Team. The idea started from one of our police officers. And he came to me and he said, we're having a lot of calls for service for homeless people, and it's repeat calls with the same people. And
They're calling, or somebody's calling about
someone's
them?
calling about an issue
Okay.
with a homeless person, whether they're calling to get us to come out and help them, or they're calling because the person's creating an issue at a business, or the homeless people regularly push shopping carts that they obtain from stores. So responding to those issues, so he said, why don't we dedicate an officer or two to deal with our homeless population? And when we talked about it, what we realized was we had a very small book of resources that we were offering to help homeless people. And part of the project when we ran a pilot about 4 months long with 2 officers, and all they did was seek out homeless people in the city or respond to calls involving homeless people within the city. And they also expanded our resources. They went out to all of the resource centers in the city or in Central Florida, and they developed relationships with these resource centers. So traditionally, we think of a resource center as Coalition for the Homeless, some place for them to sleep, Salvation Army, again, a place for them to sleep. But there's additional needs that our homeless population has, things like obtaining a valid ID, obtaining clean clothing, obtaining a hot meal, a shower, a shave, a haircut. And we didn't have that book of resources that were able to provide that assistance to our homeless population. So our officers went out and they found all these resource centers in Central Florida. They built relationships with them. And now we have a giant book of resources that we can offer help to our homeless population. So that was all done within a pilot. And then so it ended in June of last year, and after the pilot ended, we applied for a federal grant to match half of this homeless unit. So we added 2 officers to the police department. We were awarded the federal grant.
Okay.
The federal grant, it was a matching grant. They picking up half of the cost of the 2 officers' salary. And so we were able to expand our police department and add this homeless advocacy response team.
Okay. How many total officers are there, by the way, in the department?
85.
85. Okay. And that's growing over time.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And I'm guessing the homeless situation is more acute in the wintertime? As we have visitors
it
from
really
the north?
fluctuates throughout the year. There's not a summertime or a wintertime. We see ups and downs throughout the year. There's not like a specific time. It really does fluctuate. But our HEART team, they do a tremendous job of connecting our homeless population with necessary resources. We've had a couple real good success stories where they've been able to contact family members for someone or an old friend and get the homeless person to accept help from family or friends and kind of rebuild that bridge, which is great. We get them to the resource centers now to get them things they need. We were able to help one gentleman file for Social Security, and through that process, he was able to obtain an apartment. So it really is been a very successful project, and we have every intent to continue it into the future.
It sounds like a needed program for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, would either one of you like to comment as we get close to closing here? Would you like to comment? Anything else that's on your mind about the summer, about things that you would like our listeners to know about in the Winter Park community? Mayor?
There is so much that goes on, especially for children in the summer with all the camps, the programs at the library. As we talked about earlier, the swimming programs and just programs in the park. So I would just encourage everybody, whether you like doing sports, we have wonderful facilities. And I just want to comment and say one thing. Chief Volkerson, the police have done an outstanding job with the homeless, and it's really hand up instead of a hand out. And it's worked so well because you can give somebody one meal or $20 to go buy food, but it doesn't solve the problem. They're still there, and they
Right.
need the help that they need for the next meal or whatever. So it's been incredible, and that's why when people come to Winter Park, you don't see the homeless situation. I mean, there are homeless, don't get me wrong, but
Right.
not to the extent where you see them in other cities. So really, just kudos and congratulations to the chief.
Well, thank you both for that. And I think that one thing that you did, it seemed to make sense, was there always have been lots of resources, but if you don't know how to connect somebody to them, they're not valuable. They don't mean anything.
Absolutely, and I received training. I'll tell you a quick story about
Yeah,
that.
please.
I received my training 24 years ago, and you learn where Coalition for the Homeless is, and we would take people there to sleep at night. And when our HEART team went down there, what we found out is we've been dropping people off at the wrong side of the building. And it's simple
Wow.
things like that taking them in on the correct side of the building and making sure they get checked in, they make all the difference. And another thing about the HEART team is they have the time. They're not responding to emergency calls, so they have the time to dedicate to build the relationships with our homeless population. And building those relationships and establishing trust with our
Yeah.
officers is paramount for the success of this program, and our HEART team has done a tremendous job with that.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's very uplifting to hear that. Yeah, and I hope that continues. Well, it's been great having you both here, and you're welcome to come back anytime and give us an update. I know the whole thing, I know you're concerned about this, in particular about the kids' safety during the summer, and I hope that people will be aware of that and take advantage of the resources that we have.
And I would just like to say, we did enter into an agreement with the Orange County Public Schools for the student resource officers, and the Winter Park Police have always shown up and gone and do a phenomenal job with the students, with the staff, in all of the schools in Winter Park. So we have 5 schools, and we have 2 officers at Winter Park High, 1 at Glenridge Middle School, not Glenridge, I'm sorry, Winter Park 9. Glenridge is in Orlando, and 1 at Brookshire and 1 at Lakemont, and they do a superb job, and we're so pleased that that it's going to continue. The other thing is, when you're looking at what to do, I just wanted to mention in Winter Park, we're going to do a complete refresh of Park Avenue, and we're going to do it in sections, so some of it's going to be torn up. It's all new wiring.
Oh, boy.
Fixing the streets.
I didn't know this.
All the poles, because those poles that you see the lights on, they have all kinds of wiring, whether it's for irrigation, whether it's for 5G, whether it's for cameras, whether it's for, you name it, they're loaded. So we're going to put all dark sky lighting also, so the light flashes down, not up into the atmosphere. And fixing the tree wells, because the roots on the trees have buckled the sidewalks, and they need. So that's going to be done. We'll do it in sections. So we're very excited about getting started.
And when does that start?
Hopefully in mid-June.
And then how long is the entire program going to take?
Probably 2 or 3 years, because we're going to do each block as a
Okay,
section,
block
so
at a
that
time.
we don't disturb the entire Park Avenue.
Will they be closed at that time? Each block will be closed, or?
The stores will be all open.
Okay.
The stores will be open, but that portion of the roadway may or may not be closed, depending on what's going
Right,
on for
right.
the construction at that moment, and probably when they're digging up for the rewiring, and there's some flooding issues in a few areas, they will fix all of that.
Okay,
So we're very excited about that.
good. One last question, and I didn't warn you about this question, so maybe we'll cut this out at the end. What are the plans for parking near downtown? I mean, it's always crowded. Sorry, Chief. he's pointing at the mayor.
Well, we just got the parking lot opened up on New England, right by the Haagen-Dazs restaurant,
Okay,
and so we hope to that we sign.
is that's public parking?
Yes, that's
Oh.
free public parking.
Didn't that used to be a valet parking or something? Or is that- or am I
I think
confused?
they rented it
Yeah.
to the restaurants or
Okay.
whatever.
Okay.
But now it's free, open to the
Oh,
public.
that's nice. I didn't know that. Okay,
Yes,
good.
yes.
Good.
And so we've signed the lease for the year. We've got parking now. If you're playing in the fields on MLK, Valencia, you
Yeah.
can park there.
Okay.
Families can park
Nice.
there.
Nice.
And also nights and weekends for the event center, valet parking over at the across the street in the bank there.
Okay.
And all of the buildings here, you can park them back there.
Is the post office parking available in the evenings? No.
So the post office is considered private property.
Okay.
We do not do any enforcement there, but the post office, if you park in the post office parking lot, they do have tow signs posted there, and I know they
I
have
was wondering
towed
about
cars previously from that lot.
Yeah.
But that is private property for
Okay.
the United States Post Office, so
Okay.
please do not park there.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
We are building, we have plans and we're building more parking around the library too. And so we've got, I
Oh,
think, space
nice.
for maybe 60 more spaces.
Okay. Because
And so
this
that's gonna
often,
start.
especially during an event, it does get quite crowded
Oh,
here.
it's very crowded. The garage across the street's crowded, and we know that. So it's tough during the week when you have an event going on at the event center and the library's got events on. Parking is tough.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, especially with kids, don't want to walk from Valencia. And across the street, we can't park because businesses are in. So
Yes.
we are adding parking. It's in the plans. The studies have been done. Now it's just getting it built, and that should be happening soon.
Right. Right. Very good. Well, I really want to thank you both for what you do for the community, and then secondly for coming in to talk to us today. So thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
You're welcome. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Books and Beyond from the Winter Park Library. This podcast would not be possible without the generous help and support from the library staff, and especially from Jeremy Zorn. Jeremy's official title is Public Services Librarian, but he does many things here at the library, including producing this podcast. We can't do this without you, Jeremy. Our theme music is from the song Don't Go by Bovine Joe and the Buffalo Herd. That's Herd spelled H-E-A-R-D. We hope you'll let your friends and others know about this podcast, and that you'll come by the library for one of our offerings, which you can find at winterparklibrary.org/events. That's winterparklibrary.org/events. If you have questions or suggestions for the podcast, or just want to talk about Books and Beyond, please send an email to podcast@winterparklibrary.org. That's an email to podcast@winterparklibrary.org. Remember that the Winter Park Library promotes the free and open exchange of ideas and does not attempt to control or take responsibility for any opinions that may be expressed in this podcast. Opinions expressed in this podcast do not constitute or imply an endorsement or a reflection of the library's policies or beliefs. This is Michael Werner, wishing you well until our next episode of Books and Beyond.